Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. For those of you that watched my previous videos, you know that I'm really enjoying my L320 Range Rover Sport. So it was a little bit difficult for me to come up with things to mention for this video, which is 5 negatives of owning this. I had to go away and really think about, you know, things that for most people would be negative. So yeah, that's what today's video is going to be about. So let's get straight into it. Right guys, so the number one negative of this car is the maintenance cost. So obviously it is the thing that we all worry about when we're buying a kind of car off this age, because it's inevitable. These kind of cars, they're going to break. The parts for this car, there is things you can do. So you can get used parts, you can get aftermarket parts, but the labor, that's where the costs are. So the labor is going to be whatever the main dealer charge, or an independent Land Rover specialist, which is cheaper, but it's still roughly about £100 an hour. So unfortunately, it is what it is. All you can do about that is have some money set aside, ideally at least £1,000 for repairs. I personally would like to have 2. I don't, but my plan is drive the car. If it breaks, sell it. If I can't afford to fix it, and it will be sad, but you know, it's not the end of the world. You just have to keep that kind of stuff in mind. You know, just you got to have some money set aside for the repairs on this, because they will break and it's inevitable. So unfortunately, that is the biggest concern, and rightfully so. I say concern, that's the biggest negative, and rightfully so. The next thing is fuel economy, but the rain's on and off at the minute, so I'm going to get in the car and we're going to talk about the rest of it. So catch up with you in a minute. What I'm going to talk about first is what I rank as number 2, which is fuel consumption. Okay, so this car is the 2.7 TD V6. So I think the later 3-litre TD V6 versions from 2010 onwards, they have an 8-speed gearbox instead of the 6-speed that this does, which makes them more economical, even though you get more power. But as far as fuel economy goes, this is one of the most economical in this generation of Range Rover Sport. That being said, it is still quite thirsty. So I've had the EGR valve and the turbo system cleaned with, they weren't removed and cleaned, they were cleaned with a spray, and you probably saw from my previous video, if you watched it, it did make a difference in terms of response and things like that. So I know it did something. So that's been done, and the economy did go up. So it went to 23 miles per gallon around town, and on the motorway about 33 miles per gallon. That's running it on premium diesel, so that does help the fuel economy as well. So for most people, those figures aren't great. You know, for most normal cars, that's not great fuel economy, but for a near 3-ton SUV, that's not too bad at all. So fuel economy for most people wouldn't be great, but it all depends on what you're after. If you want one of these, just, you know, if you want a big SUV, you could be doing a lot worse. The third negative I've got is, again, it's probably the same with all cars of this generation, and that's there's halogen bulbs absolutely everywhere. That sounds like a stupid negative, but you got to bear in mind I was nitpicking here, but it was annoying. Let's put it this way. Here are the bulbs I've changed since I've got the car. Near side light, that was a halogen bulb, it was gone. What else? The rear boot light, gone. And the near side brake light, gone. I feel like there was one more. Oh yeah, the in the rear license plate lights, also gone. So what's that? So that's 4? Yeah, so that's 4 bulbs I've had to change in 1.5 months of ownership. And looking at the paperwork when I bought this car, the previous owner, whenever they took it for a service, things like their annual service, they also had bulbs that were gone that they hadn't noticed that they paid for to get done there as well. So halogen bulbs, not great. They don't last long. What I've done is I've replaced because it was gone, I replaced the side lights with LEDs. At first I got one off eBay. It was plenty bright, but it wasn't right, because you got to be careful what LEDs you get. Make sure that they have LEDs all the way around and at the front, because some of these cheaper ones you get off eBay, they're bright enough, but it doesn't quite work for being in a headlight housing. I replaced the rear tail lights because the brake light was gone, I replaced them with LEDs. That's brilliant. And the boot light, the light in the trunk, it wasn't bright enough. The halogen bulb, it's a big trunk and it's quite dark back there. The halogen bulb wasn't bright enough to light up the boot space. I found myself having to use my phone torch when I was in there late at night and it was dark. And when it went, it was kind of like, okay, well, I was going to replace it with an LED anyway. So, and also when that went, I went to Halfords, pick up some LEDs. They're about £3 a pack. So I picked up enough to replace all the interior ones, because it just gets rid of the need to replace everything every month or every whatever, you know. LEDs will last probably longer than this car will. Basically, I don't have to worry now that they're going to go every 2 seconds and I'm going to be down to the store every month to try and get bulbs to replace them. This one kind of ties in to my third one, and it's the fourth one, and that's the lack of daytime running lights. And what I've noticed is whenever I'm driving and there's a car coming towards me that does not have daytime running lights, and safe, especially if you're in a built-up area and there's a lot of parked cars about, it takes you a few extra milliseconds to notice whether a car that does not have daytime running lights is on and coming towards you or not. It sounds stupid, but maybe it's just me, but that's what I've noticed. And I personally think they're a safety feature that a lot of people don't really think about, but they are massive. And you can install aftermarket daytime running lights on these, but it involves splitting open the headlights, which I wasn't really too keen on doing, because obviously if you split open the seal, you've got to make sure you seal it back properly so you don't get water inside your headlight unit. And I didn't really want to put too much aftermarket stuff on this car. I've actually gone about removing as much as possible. So I was a bit hesitant, but since I've swapped the side lights for LED bulbs, it's been brilliant. I pretty much use my side lights as daytime running lights. So when you turn the side lights on, all that does is it turns on the side lights and the rear tail lights, and they're all LED bulbs, so I don't have to worry about them burning out prematurely by me using them as daytime running lights, and they are plenty bright enough so that the car is visible in daytime. So that's that one done. And if I'm honest, I would recommend it. It is a change I would recommend. It's not, I don't count upgrading your lights as a modification. They're a safety feature, and you know, the technology wasn't really there when these cars were made. They're there now. I would probably say most people should go about and do that. They're not that expensive and you're going to benefit from it. And the final issue, I had to struggle for this one really. It's the size. I mean, the size is a negative and a positive. And the negative part of the size is that it's a square car. You can see, you sit up high, you can see all 4 corners easily. There's good visibility all around. So when you're reversing, this one doesn't have a rear camera, some do, but I've got front and rear sensors. So I can see and I can hear the beeping. So it's fine for me. It's easy to park, but because of its size, a lot of parking spaces don't really accommodate a car of this size. So you might park somewhere, you go away, you come back, someone's parked next to you, they're parked properly within the bay, but because of the size of this thing, you now struggle to get in. And I have a car seat in the back here. My son is usually, when I go out and about, he's usually in here with me. If that does happen, if someone does park either side of us, it's a bit of a ball ache really. So I've got to kind of tuck my stomach in, squeeze in my side, and then I've got to move the car forward, and then we can get him in the back. Bit of a stupid negative. I had to nitpick really to find it, but you know, it is a negative. So that's really it. That's really it. I mean, as I said, I had to think about the negatives of owning this car, and the biggest one is maintenance. That is by far the biggest. All the others, you know, they're there, but you know, you can live with them. So that's it, guys. That's it for today's video. Hope you liked it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and until the next one, take care. Bye bye.